Awesome sauce. So you are with the Jackie Jackson and her BFF. Sheena. Sheena is one of my coaching clients. So we're Cash Flow Your Life, and we're about to do a quick tutorial on how to use ListSource to generate a really amazing layered and targeted leads list for your real estate investing business. Okay, so ListSource is one of the companies that you can use, and they pull from a data source called CoreLogic, and CoreLogic has access to all of the API across the country in like every county in America, all right? Every county and county equivalent across the country. So it has a lot of data that this site collects. So it's pretty awesome. Now, the same data that they collect is available on public record. So if your budget is limited initially, I encourage you to learn how to maneuver through the public records or the clerk of court's website or magistrate's website for your county. And that way you can create your own list absolutely for free without having to pay for it. The only thing that you will spend is time, and we understand the value of time. So what ListSource does for you is it compiles all of that data, so it adds a convenience. But if you don't have the funds to actually create and pay for this list on your own, then you just spend a little bit about a time and create your own list directly from the counties themselves that you're interested in marketing in. So what we have done is gone to listsource.com, and we're on their homepage right now. So Jashina has the wheel, and I'm going to help her navigate and create the list of her choice. All right. So what we're going to do is just click on the link right there in the top portion of the page that says build list. All right, so go ahead and click on that box right there, Jashina. It says build list, and we are on our way. All right, so you don't necessarily have to register initially with ListSource in order to do business with ListSource and to just search and see what kind of lists they have available to them. But what you'll do is, like, after you have finished completing your list, then it's going to ask you to either save the list or purchase the list. So that's the time that you're going to have to register. Fair enough? So what we'll be doing is going through each of these tabs right here, Sheena, and then you'll be able to choose the specific criteria, and then it's going to generate a list for you. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
All right. So the first thing it wants to know is where, right? Geography. So click here, that drop down right there in that radius. So here are all the criteria that you can choose from. I specifically like to just go straight to county. All right. But you can use any of the above. All right. So now it's going to ask you what state. So, Sheena, choose the state of choice. Sweet. Now it's going to generate all 254 counties in the state of Texas, because Texas is pretty big. So it's in alphabetical order here. So what you would do is, depending on the type of machine you have, like your operating system, if it's iOS, then I believe it's like command, right? You click on the command, and then you could button, and you could select more than one county if you desire. And I think if it's Windows, I think it's like shift, maybe shift control or control. Yeah, and then you could do that. So you only want to do one county, Sheena?
Let's do...
Or you could start with one county just for like simplicity, because it's just a tutorial.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, cool. So once you've highlighted the county, go ahead and click on add. All right. So do you see? Yeah. So
it's okay. Let's go with this just for the example.
All right, perfect. So every time you add a new criteria in ListSource onto your list, it's going to adjust your count. So what just happened is ListSource says, hey, there's 319,462 households in this county. That's all it said. But now you got to be more specific. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, sweet. So now we have to go to the next tab. All right. So just scroll down for me real quick, Sheena. I just want to make sure, just if you scroll down to the bottom of the page there. Okay. So do you see, if you really wanted to just keep all 319,000 plus leads, you can purchase the list right there, or you could save the criteria. Does that make sense?
Yes,
but it's just too broad. Would you agree?
it is.
It
It
is.
is.
You know, you don't have the capacity right now as a solo entrepreneur to market to 300 and, 19,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to narrow this down. Too easy, right? So let's click on the mortgage tab. All right, let's click on the mortgage tab. Now, this is really, really important because the mortgage tab, this is what you would have to think about, right? Now, as real estate investors, one of the things that we're going to have to decide is what is our business model? Who is our target market? Who are we talking to? Who are we marketing to, right? So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it needs to be specific. So if you are a real estate investor that intends to maximize your strategy as the wholesaling strategy, then what you're looking for is mortgages that are paid off, right? Properties that have high equity in them, which means that the property owner would have already paid down the majority of the balance on their mortgage, right? So that's important to you because if you are implementing the wholesale strategy, guess what? You need that property to be free and clear or have a really, really low balance, like maybe 10%, 20%, 30%. Because the wholesaling strategy, in order for you to be successful, you're purchasing kind of like at 50 cents on the dollar or less sometimes. So you need a lot of equity. Doesn't make sense for you to market to people who have mortgages that doesn't fit that criteria. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yep. So if you are a options investor, meaning that you're offering option agreements like rent to own lease options, then maybe you want to market to people who have maybe they have higher equity limits, right? So maybe they've paid down their mortgage by like 30%, right? So they still owe money, but 70% or something like that. And then that would give you an opportunity to negotiate for your lease option agreements because you can afford to actually contract with those owners because you're not really buying the house right away. You're
Oh,
putting an option agreement or to purchase the house sometime in the future. So you don't really need that much equity. So maybe, you say, okay, it needs to have at least 30% equity, between 30% to 20% equity. So you could market to people who have maybe 70, 80%, that kind of thing. And then you could always do your adjustments from that point. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on where it says all mortgages. It defaulted there. And then I want you to hit your drop down. Okay, so do you see how it gives you all these other different type of subcategories? Okay, so for all mortgages, what we're really looking for is, let's see, it says adjustable, combined, equity loan, interest rate. You could search by interest rate. All of these things matter depending on who you're marketing to and what your marketing message is. Does that make sense?
mhm.
All right. So for right now, we can do loan to value, or I'm really looking for where it says equity loan, but equity loan here is like a second mortgage. That's what they're meaning here. So as a matter of fact, I tell you what I'm going to have you do. I am going to have you leave this criteria blank for now because I believe that they have it in another tab, what I'm really looking for. All right,
Okay.
we can always come back to it. So go back to your property tab, the next tab over. All right, so select here, this drop down. Perfect. Sweet. So this is what I was referring to before. So the percentage of equity, do you see there? Yeah, click that. That's what I want you to click on. All right, so now you need to tell me, Sheena, real estate investor, what kind of percent equity are you looking for in these properties? What real estate investing strategy are you planning to implement? What are you looking for?
Okay, so my biggest thing is, of course, cash flow. So I
Mhm.
want a society that has anywhere from 80 to 100% equity.
Okay.
Well, actually, that would be whole. I guess that would be more so wholesale, 80 to 100%. But if they have anywhere from, I guess, minimum 30%
Hmm.
equity, then we
Yeah.
can do that as a lease option.
Okay, sweet. So here's what I want you to do. You're going to have to hold down either your control button or your command button
Mhm.
based on what what computer system you're using, and I want you to hold down, select where it says 70% to 80% equity.
Okay.
Yeah. You want this because this is the amount, the percentage of equity that they actually have. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you're going to, they have 71 to 100% equity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So you might even want them to even have, let me see, even, why don't you include 61 to 70%? Why not? And then click add. Good job. So do you see how your count changed from 319,000 to 400?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what you have done so far is we've selected the county of El Paso, Texas. These are property owners that have 60 to 100% equity in their properties. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, straight. Now we're going to go back to the drop down again, criteria here. And what we're going to do is we're going to search by property type, because you can select another category, subcategory in here. So, yep, so let's do that. So it behooves us to decide what type of properties we're looking for, because are you sending to apartment complexes? Like, what are you doing?
No, single family houses.
All right, so scroll down and let's look for that. It's there. It's there. So do you see where it says residential single family residences? It's right under recreational. Yeah. And then add.
I was looking for it to be spelled out.
Okay. That's okay. I didn't want it to trick you. So, so now we've narrowed down to 37,856. Now, I also want to bring to your attention, if you were a real estate investor and your intent was to market to multifamily properties, Sheen, if you scroll up, please, within that selection type there, this is where you would see your duplexes, your triplexes, multifamilies, that kind of thing. If you were a mobile home investor, you could select mobile home. If you were a vacant land investor, you can select vacant land. So you have to decide what is your business model. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in the criteria of residential single family residence, single family residences includes 1 to 4 units. So it already assumes that it's, a single family home, duplex, triplex, or quad. But if you wanted to specifically search every single triplex in that county, then you would just select triplex only. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
All right, cool. So let's go back to our drop-down criteria again, and then let's make sure that we are deciding what we want to look for. Okay, so scroll, let's see what else we're looking for, because based on our criteria, it makes sense for us to be very, very specific. So we got property type so far, we got the total amount of equity. Now, one of the things that I like to look at is the year that the property was built. The year the property was built, which I believe is the last one down at the bottom.
Okay.
All right. Now, why is this important? Well, older properties tend to have more deferred maintenance. Would you agree?
Yes.
Right. So here's where we could actually develop our sweet spot. All right. So you can say, okay, I'm looking for properties that were built from 1960 through 1989 or 1999 or something like that. Does that make sense? That's something that you can do there as well. So hit your drop down for me again. I just wanted to bring that to your attention that you could be even more specific. Now, one of the other things that I make sure I also do too, if you scroll up to the top where it says bedrooms.
Yes.
Yep. Please click there. All right. So because to me, 3 bedrooms are always in demand versus like 2, I would do that. So if is your sweet spot between 3 and 5 bedrooms, or just, a minimum of 3 bedrooms?
Minimum of 3.
Okay, so hit add. Will it allow you to add? It wants you to do a value. So let's put 7. So that includes everybody, right? Whatever.
There we go.
All right, cool. Do you see how that dramatically
Yeah.
reduced? Okay, cool. Let's do bathrooms. So a lot of places, you know, if you leave it blank, then it's obviously going to do at least one, you know, but maybe you want like a minimum of 3 beds, 2 bath houses, single family houses, right?
Yep.
So when you put 4, what that means is that if there's a 5-bedroom house in there, it's going to exclude it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm just saying, I just wanted you to just make sure you understand the data.
Yeah.
All right, so hit add. Too easy.
Wow.
So that didn't reduce it by much.
Mm-hmm.
All it did was get rid of it. It excluded, I should say, the 1-bedroom, the 1-bathroom, excuse me, properties.
Okay.
Do you see that?
Yes.
All right, so let's go back to our list here. You can also do square footage. All right. So some places, what's in demand in your area? Is it like 1,100 square feet or more? Your sweet spot? Is it 1,500 square feet or more? Um, that's if that's something that is important, then you want to make sure that you select that as well too. So you could literally be as specific or as broad in your criteria as you desire.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think you want to do?
For that one, for the square footage, I think I will leave it alone because you have an area that is growing, and a lot of the older homes are pretty small, and then you get the newer homes that are average 1,100 to 3,000 square feet. So leave it.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we did not do is put the age of the properties. We talked about it, but we did not select it.
Right.
So would you like to do that? Would you like to put some criteria around that, parameters around that?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's do, a lot of the homes here are older because it's an older. So we'll do 1960. I like 1960. Like that. And then we'll do what you said earlier, just to see.
All right. So the houses that were built from 2000 and present will not be included in this list.
Right.
Okay. So 2000 to present, that means that's a 19-year-old house that's not included in here. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that's cool. But 1960 to 1999, I mean, that's a really good range, you know, because I mean, if a house is 20 years old, it may or may not be paid off, but it could be depending on the mortgage type that the owner had at the time that they purchased it, if they never refinanced and they kept it. So
Okay.
just trying to make sure that you understand what the data is telling you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, sweet. So if you click that drop down one more time, is there any other criteria that you would like to include? For
Yeah.
example, where it says the total assessed value,
Yes.
that's the county's assessed value of that property. Like when you go to the property appraiser's website for that county,
Mm-hmm.
this would be the county's assessed tax value, right? For that property, not the market value, but the county's assessed value. So if your sweet spot is, you know, properties that are has an assessed value of 150 to 200,000, then basically what you're doing here is like eliminating like any $1 million properties because that's not who you're marketing to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have an option for the estimated market value?
Well, what it does have here, not necessarily the market value, but what it does have is the recording date, like the last market date. If you go up to L, because it's in alphabetical order in the criteria, uh, there you go. So the last market recorded value, that would be like the actual, like you have sales price there. You
Mm-hmm.
have the last market sale with the deed type, like if you were searching for any property that had like a warranty deed or a special warranty deed, or maybe you're searching for properties that sold through had a transfer of ownership through a quitclaim deed or a tax deed, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do all of those. So you can only mark, say for example, you want to do a marketing campaign to every tax deed owner in the state of um, in Texas in a county of El Paso. Like
Okay.
every investor that acquired a property through a tax deed, you can market to them like that. That's
Okay.
just off the top of my head. But because market values are based off of what the market will bear, like what buyers will buy, that's like a moving target and it adjusts every month. It doesn't have that criteria in there. It only has concrete criteria, like historic information.
Okay. So I know that my sweet spot is anywhere from 93,000 to 125.
Sweet. So I would want you to select two criterias then. Can you please, do the dollar to, yeah, ironically, just do it anyway. And then all the way to 200,000. All right, and then hit add. So what we've done is we've added a criteria that the tax assessed value for that property is from $1 to $200,000.
Okay.
That's what we've done. Is there any other criteria that you'd like to take a look at?
Here, style, property type, parking type, lot area, length of residence.
Up at the top where it says current home value, yeah, that's the one probably that will give us that criteria there. So you can
Okay.
exclude, you can go back and take off the assessed value if you want, because the assessed value is what the county says the property is worth, or you can go back and do the current home value, which is speculative.
Let's keep it where it is.
Okay, cool. Because I don't know how accurate this home value part is. I don't know where they're getting their information from, but I do know the county assessed value, what they're pulling it from is the property appraiser's website. That's for sure.
Okay.
Right. But the current home value, that one would be speculative. Like, it's no different than like a Zestimate or something like that for like a Zillow or something. So let's click on it one more time. The drop down for the property criteria. Is there anything else in here that you would like? Now, one of the things that you could look at here, say, for example, let's click on style of property all the way down at the bottom. Let's see what that says. Ooh. So are you looking for like ranch style homes or bungalows, Cape Cod? It has all of that stuff in here too, all the different styles. Yeah, if that was something that was important to you, I just wanted to show that to you. And then another criteria I want to explain to you, the one directly above style, which is the stories. So say, for example, you're looking for a specific type of property and you're looking for all one story. Like you want everything to be, you don't want any type of 2-story homes or a home that has like multiple floors. This is where you can do that as well too. If that's not important to you, then you could bypass that and move on. But I just wanted to show you that how granular you can get.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to demographics. This is actually my favorite part. Now, the demographic, when it says household means like all owners, right?
Okay.
And you could actually do either owner number 1 or owner number 2. So for example, some properties have multiple owners, some properties only have 1 owner, some property has 2 or 3 or whatever. But if you do household, then it's basically taking into consideration all of the owners. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so let's click on the selected criteria and you'll be surprised what's there. How cool.
Wow. Wow.
So you can do age, you can do credit card, direct mail, education, ethnicity, gender, all kinds of stuff. Now this is based off of the like buying habits that have been recorded by each of those individuals in that county. So one of the things that I like to look at is the age. I like to layer that because what I like to do is I like to market specifically to properties that are free and clear or have a minimum of 80% equity in it, single family residences, right? Everything that you have on your criteria that have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms or more, right? With an assessed value of $200,000 or less that was built in, 20, 30, to 40 years ago to owners that are 65 and older. Does that make 65 and sometimes 55? I like to market to baby boomers.
Yes, that makes sense.
You're right. Because if you think about the stage of their life, what is the stage of the life of a person who's 55 to 65 plus? What's that stage of their life? What do you think?
Like they're retiring, probably trying to get closer to their kids and relaxing. Great example. My dad and his wife, they sold their house, moved into an apartment so they don't have to worry about any of the housework or upkeep. You have my mom who is planning her thing that if we move back to Atlanta, she's going to move in the basement. So,
Right. Right.
so yeah.
Yeah. They're downsizing, right?
Yes.
Yes. They are downsizing and they're liquidating. They're literally liquidating their assets, right? They're at that stage of their life where they're making those decisions. So if it even was their primary residence, or if they had other properties that maybe they had like rental properties, this is a time that they're like, okay, well, I have been cash flowing this property for the last 15, 20 years successfully. I've made money off of it, and now I'm considering, selling it because I just don't want to maintain it anymore. And a lot of times these baby boomers, they have children, right, who are either Generation X or millennials, depending on when they had the child. And those kids are like, I don't want that old house. The kids are like, I don't, they're thinking about the maintenance, the upkeep, and the cost for repairs. And normally their children are not in a position to take the house from them. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Right. So I love to layer the motivations on my list. I love it. I actually love it. All right. And I found that I have had a lot of success with this particular criteria. Cool.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So let's click on our criteria one more time. We're down to 1,452. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
I know, right? From 319,000. Okay. Because you're paying per lead for each list. So, you want to be really specific versus really, really wide. Let's see what else is on here. You could do occupation, the presence of children, religion, year of birth, marital status, investments, all kinds of stuff that you can add more to. But I normally don't do anything additional on the demographic. I just leave everything really broad. But the age is one that I would select. So let's click on foreclosure. Let's click on the next tab over. All right, sweet. So we can do default, which is pre-foreclosure, pending auction, or bank owned. Okay. So can you click on the drop down criteria for me? Now here are the original or the additional criteria that you can do. So it's defaulted to pre-foreclosure. So just leave it at that. I don't really have any issues there. Because if it's pending in the sale, then it's already too late. And if it's a bank owned, that means that the bank already owns it. But if you are a REO, like you buy foreclosures directly from the bank, then that would be something that you would be, selecting if that was something of your choice. But we want to talk to actual property owners.
Right.
Okay. So let's click on the options. All right, cool. So this is now where we get to add, is it owner occupied? Is it absentee? Or if you have no preference, I like to do absentee owners, people who don't live in the property, is not their primary residence. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Now, here is the subcategory of absentee. It either includes in-state or out-of-state. So what does in-state mean, Sheena? What it means is it is a property that's owned by a individual that lives in the same state, but they don't live in their property. So for example, you may have someone that lives in Houston, a property owner, but they own a property in El Paso and it's not their primary residence. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So that's the in-state owner. And then the out-of-state owner means that they own that property within the county of El Paso. However, they live in a different state other than the state of Texas.
Okay.
All right. So I want you to click on where it says trustee owned, exclude trustees. That should give us some more. And then corporate, exclude corporate. And then mailing address complete, you want that. And owner occupied. Isn't that interesting? It brought it down to 6.
Yeah.
Which is not a lot, obviously. So, what we can do, we can go back and play with our criteria, because obviously 6 leads is not going to work itself out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see what we can go back in and change in our data fields and see if that makes a difference to us. So we can either take off the year, we could do that. And now it includes more properties, only 15. We could take off the year. We could take off the age, if you'd like, the age of the owner, if we'd like to do that. I would definitely keep the bankruptcy, and not the bankruptcy, excuse me, the equity. I would keep that. Scroll down for me using the scroll bar. We're going to exclude corporate owned, because isn't that interesting? Why does it say there's 328,300 corporate owned? Everything in El Paso is registered to an LLC? That don't make no sense.
Okay.
Or some kind of like entity. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's the biggest exclusion.
I know one entity had like over like 100, 200 homes. One of them did. That's the one that I told you that went bankrupt.
Yes.
Yeah, and now everybody's having to move out of the properties.
Oh, wow. So maybe that is a real thing. I don't know.
I mean, I didn't know it was over 600. Well, I guess the population is on like 600,000. So.
Okay. So we did choose, a county that wasn't that the population wasn't that much. So that might be part of it. If half the population or half the properties owning it is owned by a corporate entity, then that would make sense. Or, or 2/3 of the property. So but my point here is I wanted to go through this tutorial with you because it could be any county USA. Does that make sense? So this was only for one county. So you can go back and add as many counties as you'd like, or you can manipulate and change the household information where you exclude the age, and that would add more people to it or something like that. It doesn't make a difference to me. But yeah, this is how this works. So let's go back to geography. What are the counties that are surrounding your area in El Paso? Maybe we add some more counties to it.
The closest county to me is in New Mexico.
All right, so change the state then.
All right, New Mexico.
And do you know the county?
Donna
Ana.
Yeah, there we go.
Add that. Let's see what that changes to 30. All right, well, something's awry in our numbers because you should have more than that. You should definitely have more than that. So let's click on all of our tabs and just make sure that we, I know we didn't do any mortgages. We left that blank. The property type, oh, no, we didn't do that. That says single, that's fine. We didn't select anything.
Yeah, we did like the equity.
Yeah, and I would leave that. I would leave that.
I want to try something. I just want to try this just to see.
To take off the bathrooms?
Yeah.
3. All right, we'll take off the bedrooms and see what happens there.
All right, where?
X and exclude it there. Yep, you see the little red X? All right, there you go. No, it isn't by much. No, unless everyone, almost everybody in El Paso, Texas, still owes on their property. Because one of the biggest criteria that we have in here is the need for the property to be either free and clear or have at least 61% equity in it. Do you see that?
Yeah, and I see here, so what we have, 32, that's 91.
And then the other one was the assessed value. So would you like to maybe, exclude that? Let's see what happens here. If that makes a difference. No, it didn't add more. No, it reduced it.
Yeah, there we go.
Still not enough. We need a list of at least, 400, 500. And then what you do is you continuously mail to the same list. So what a lot of investors do is they go from list to list to list every single month, not understanding that if you keep the same list and you exhaust that same list, so you create a mailing campaign of 6 to 7 touches with the same list. So that therefore those individuals continuously see your name as you are communicating with them. So your first letter, you send that out. And then the second letter is like, hey, I sent you a letter 2 weeks ago. Just wanted to know if you got it. And then the third letter is like, oh, I don't know if you're in the market to sell your house, but I'm an investor and I buy houses as is. And I would love to talk to you about yours. And then the fourth letter kind of says the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you keep mailing to the same people. You don't keep changing lists, because that's how you are building rapport. Now, eventually they're going to see your name a few times, and two options is going to happen. Either going to call you and say, hey, I'm not interested, take me off your list. Or two, they're going to call you and say, I'm interested, tell me more. That's
Okay.
it. That's the only thing that's going to happen. And then as you continue to manage your list, the ones that say take me off their list, you just ask them for a referral. You say, oh, okay, well, I'm still looking for a property in your area, in your neighborhood. If you know anyone that is selling or in the market for selling their property as is and would like to get a cash offer, can you please refer them to me? I mean, just ask for a referral. It doesn't have to be a negative phone call, just ask for a referral, and then you end the call that way. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, cool. So do you kind of have a little idea of how you can layer and create your lists?
Yes. This is lovely. This is lovely. So on average, I know they pay, like you charge per lead. What am I looking to spend?
Right. You would have to go through the whole process down at the bottom. So here's what I want you to do. On the for the equity, what you can do is exclude the 61%. Yeah, exclude that. Exclude that. Yeah. You just want people who have 100% equity in there. Let's see what that happens there. It reduces it. How cool is that? We don't want reduction. We want increase. So basically what we've done is we say, okay, if I'm going to do the wholesale, if I'm going to do the wholesale strategy, what I'm doing here is I'm looking for people who have 90% equity or more in their property. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Which is basically your free and clear people. That's what you want. So what you can also do is exclude the years, exclude the age, and see if that makes a difference. Now it's just anybody. Should work better. Yes. Yeah. So what this means to you is that maybe the demographic of baby boomers in El Paso, Texas, of property owners that are out of state, because remember, we layered it. So absentee, in-state, and out-of-state owners are younger than 65 or younger than 55. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I knew there was going to be a criteria in here that was probably the one that was causing it to be such a small list. So you have a young age demographic in El Paso, Texas. Does that make sense? That's all that means. But now you have a list of 6,871. So it's a really big list. It'll, depending on your marketing budget, that's the reason why it looks so large. So I want you to, that's if you want to save. You clicked on save the list, okay? Yeah. All right, so here, go back. Purchase list. Let's click on that.
Now, I think I already have an account.
Right. So this is where I was sharing with you that you'd have to create an account with them, that kind of thing. And I don't know if your account number or what kind of information is going to populate because remember, we're still recording. So for the purpose of this training video, this would be the time that you would complete your profile, all right, create a ListSource account, and you would put all that information there. And if you scroll down, it gives you all of the steps here. So step 1, complete this form, which is over in the right-hand side column in that gray box. It says buying a list is easy. Complete this form, continue to purchase page, and choose your output options. So your output options would be like a CSV file from Excel, and you can convert that CSV file into like a actual mailer for yourself. too, because you've done that many times.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy and download the list, and then you could put your list into action. So what some people do, some investors do, once they get that Excel CSV file, then they send it to their like skip tracing service or something like that. Or maybe they send it to their mail house who's going to do the automated mailing for them. Or maybe they do their own mail merge and they have a template of their own letter, and then they just do their own letters and then print it at home or in their home office, and then they mail it as they see fit. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, good. So that's pretty much how you do it. That's pretty much how you do ListSource. All right. So that was an awesome tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead now and end the recording. But before I do that, do you have any questions about it, Sheena, that you'd like to share or ask?
Not about the ListSource. No, that was perfect.
That was perfect. Are you clear on how to create your own list now?
Yes.
All right, great. All right, cool. So now I'm going to end it. All right, awesome.